Now it's time to pop off with Mary Jane Pop.
And it is time for the Pop Off Radio Show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Have got a good one for you tonight. Many of you think you should be promoted at your job. Well, we all have high hopes of getting promoted, but do you get frustrated when you think you should be moving up? Well, it's tough competition to get to the top, let's face it. So how about tactics for getting promoted sooner? Enter Jennifer Eggers, Organizational Resilience Authority, C-level executive coach, international consultant, president of LeaderShift Insights, Inc., and best-selling author of Resilience. It's not about bouncing back. It's how leaders and organizations can build resilience before disruption hits. And you know disruption is just around the corner. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, Mary Jane. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Okay, so why worry about competition? Shouldn't you just be the best you can be and concentrate on yourself?
Well, gosh, that we certainly would hope and like that to be the case, but sometimes, it's just not. There's a lot of people in the running for, almost every job out there, although it's a little easier now with unemployment the way it is. But, there's still, if you're really good, there's still competition for great jobs.
So we still have to play someone else's game.
Well, I'd like to say play your own game and really be authentic, but it really is in a lot of ways about playing a game. When we think about being promoted, part of being promoted is figuring out how to do it. And in every company, there's kind of a secret sauce on how they make decisions around promoting people. Oh. And so I think the secret there is to figure out how those decisions are made and how can you influence it.
So give me a couple of examples of this secret sauce.
Sure. I mean, I have a lot of clients where there are actual talent conversations that happen at every level. And they actually, the leaders get together and they're actually talking about one level down and figuring out, who's ready to be promoted, what roles are available, and who's the best player for that role. And so they're actually talking about everybody at that next level and making decisions. And so the game that you play is to really build those strategic relationships, figure out who influences that decision in your case, and then build the relationships with people that are going to be in that room, even if you don't report to them or really have anything to do with them in your day-to-day role.
So what about those, and I've heard this happening, it's not personally happened to me, but there are some people that say, well, you got to be careful how you want to get promoted because the person that may be promoting you may be afraid you're going to take their job.
Yeah, that happens too. And I think this promotion piece really comes down to the relations that you have, because you can have somebody above you that maybe doesn't want you to win as much as you want to win, or maybe they're intimidated by you, and that happens all the time. But if you have really good relationships with that person's peers, and that group of leaders gets together to talk about who's going to get promoted, they'll get overridden if you have the best relationships you can have with the other people in that room. So that's kind of the secret strategy, if you will, around, really having some influence. And it's all about, playing your own game and being authentic, but be really strategic about those relationships that you build.
So you really need to know your boss, basically, is what you're saying, right?
Well, you need to know not only your boss, and this is the thing that most people miss, and I have a lot of senior clients that miss this. You've got to have relationships with your boss's peers. And these are people that you might not have a lot to do with every day. But if you can find a way to get to know them and meet with them on a regular basis, find excuses to go meet with them, ask for coaching, ask for them to mentor you. And then when you meet with them, tell them what you're working on. And I mean, even personal development stuff. I'm working on, my communication skills, or I want to learn, more about how to read a profit and loss statement, or whatever it is. And then ask them to help. Ask them to coach you. And that'll give you a chance to just get in a conversation. Everybody loves to talk about what they do, and everyone loves to be I say everyone, right? It's a generalization, but for the most part, people love to talk about the things they're good at. So when you ask them for coaching, you get a little bit of unconscious credit, if you will, for being interested in something that'll come up in those conversations about you.
No, I understand what you're saying, but then the person that you have to answer to, don't they feel uncomfortable when you go to other people?
Well, you have to kind of do it with their permission as well. I mean, I wouldn't just go running around. You're not going over them. You're kind of going next to them. So you can even tell the person that you are working for why you want to learn from one of their peers or why you want to learn about another area of the business. I mean, you can come up with a business reason to go meet with some of those people. And in most cases, it's not so much of a threat because they're that person's peers, not necessarily their superior.
Yeah, but peers have fears too. They really do.
Well, in some cases, I mean, you may not be able to get to all of them, but, I can't tell you how many times I've had, and I've been in this mess myself at the same time, but yeah. I have also had clients that, the conversation comes up and their boss is advocating for them to be promoted, but if the boss's peers don't know who you are, the boss isn't going to win. So,
Gotcha.
Other people will advocate for their direct report, right? So sometimes the boss will even encourage that. But I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't necessarily do it without informing your boss in terms of, what you're doing.
Yeah. And make sure it doesn't pinch their toes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last thing you want to do, is pinch your boss's toes. Although I would say, you have to make a judgment call in some of these situations. But I can remember one company I worked for where I had a boss that was, he was just a tough one. And, he really didn't like me much, to be honest. And, of course, I didn't agree with him. But I had a lot to do with his peers and other, with other projects I was working on and whatnot. And it was his peers that saved me. Really? When that conversation came up, he kind of tried to put me off. And it was actually his peers that said, hey, wait a minute, I've had a good experience with Jennifer. She helped us with this. She helped us with that. And it saved me. And it never, was never really a put off for him because I had a business reason to go meet with those guys.
Okay.
And they were guys.
So
in that situation.
Yeah, well, guys, gals. Oh, that's the other thing, too. Is it a lot different when you're dealing with a woman or a man, or depends on their personality?
I think it depends on their personality.
Yeah.
I really think it depends on their personality. I mean, I've certainly felt at times that women don't support women as much as we should, but I think that in many cases is changing a bit. I'm happy to see that tide shift, in recent years. But I think it's personality. I mean, I've had men that were supportive and men that weren't, and I've had women that were supportive and women that weren't, both that I've worked for and that I've coached.
I've always had a philosophy, and we'll see if this is right or not. But over the years, I've been at different stations and doing different things, both radio and television. And the one thing I never wanted to do is to climb over anyone. Because, what, you get to the top, and then, there's only one way, and that's back down again. And you might just meet those people on the way back down. So it's like, do it because you are the best you can be, but don't do it over somebody's body. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. That will always come back to bite you.
Yeah.
I mean, that you will never win. You might win in the short term, but you will never win in the long term if you start stepping on people.
Yeah.
I mean, because those people will always at some point, they're going to talk to somebody that has some say in your career or has some influence, and you may never know it.
Yeah. And you get on people's hate list. That's not a good idea.
You absolutely do. And I've had people on that list of mine that didn't bode well for them in the long run either.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all play that game. That's kind of human nature. So, the more people you can get along with, the better off. But, business is tough. It's not always a popularity contest.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make tough decisions. You're going to have to make some tough calls, and you're not always going to not everyone's going to love you all the time.
Yeah.
And but you've got to be able to let that happen without stepping on people.
And also to have a good conscience. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Exactly.
So when you get up in the morning, you look in the mirror, you can't say, I don't think I like you, you know.
That's absolutely right. You know, and I like to think of it as we need to figure out how to be ourselves in a way that works for others.
Gotcha. Okay, so you mentioned tactics. What kind of tactics? I mean, how do I approach these people? Is it in a social situation, on the job, or both? I'm not sure how to approach them.
Yeah, that's another interesting question. I've got a client wrestling with that now, that she's looking at me saying, what do you mean I need a relationship with these people that I have nothing to do with? Well, first thing you need to do is think about who those people are. And I mean, sit down and write a list. You know, get a list together of who the people are that are going to influence decisions about people in your organization and potentially your career. I mean, you got to know who's in the room when those conversations are happening. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to build a plan. And I have a spreadsheet. Build a plan on how you're going to build relationships with those people. Now, if some of these people, you know, there might be one or two on this list that your boss just, you know, is really protective of or handles with kid gloves and maybe doesn't want you to build that relationship. You know, they're the ones that you're going to strike up a conversation at the water cooler, or, you know, this is harder on Zoom, obviously, but when we're in the office, I mean, these are the people that you kind of want to try to intentionally run into, you know, and just, you know, build a social relationship with. The ones that you can actually call up, I would find a reason to call them and ask for help. And it doesn't have to imply weakness. It could be... Yeah,
you don't want them to say, what a dope, you know.
Well, no. I don't think it needs to imply weakness. You could say, here's an example. I've got a couple examples.
Okay.
One might be, you know, I work on this particular product line, you know, in a retail organization, and I'm really focused on my product line. But, gosh, as I advance in the organization, I've got to be able to see the big picture. So I want to learn a little bit more about a product line that has nothing to do with mine. So I might go to my boss and say, hey, I want to reach out to somebody over there. Do you mind if I call so-and-so? Or you may just call that person if it's, you know, if you're comfortable with that, and just ask for help. Say, hey, you know, I want to learn a little bit about your area of the business. Would you mind, you know, having lunch and explaining, you know, your thoughts to me on, you know, on your area? I have one client who, she's the president of a business unit, and, you know, she got some feedback that there's an aspect of the corporate finances that she really didn't understand. So, and it was kind of hurting her. So she called the CFO, and, you know, with her boss's blessing, of course, but she called, he was her boss's peer. She called the CFO, and she said, hey, you know, I want to learn about this particular, you know, aspect of the finance arena. Can you mentor me on this? Well, there are very few people that are going to refuse to be a mentor. I mean, people just love to be asked.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, too, if you approach it, I think it's the approach that you're talking about more than anything else, because if you let your boss know that, you know, I'm not, and you don't have to say it out loud, but make sure that they know you don't want to move away from them. You just want to be a better person where you are so that you can do the job better.
Actually, absolutely. You just want to learn something, right? You want to expand your knowledge. You want to learn more about the organization. It has nothing to do with, you know, a competition with your boss. It's just, you know, hey, I'm interested in this. I want to learn a little bit more. Boy, this person happens to be really good at this. You know, or it just might be, hey, I don't know anything about this area, and I feel like I should.
Okay. How about how much, like you have a new job. If you have a new job, how long should you wait before you try doing some of this stuff?
Boy, that is a great question. And, you know, the way I look at this is I look at networking as kind of like a bullseye, you know, where you have sort of concentric circles like a target. Mm-hmm. And the middle of that circle is the people that you deal with every day. So if you take a new job, you know, those are the people that work for you. They're the people that work on projects that you work on, your peers, your boss. You know, they're your inner circle, if you will, of people that you deal with all the time. The circle outside of that might be those people's peers. It could be support partners or people that are a little bit further out that you don't really have as much reason to deal with, but you kind of got to know who they are. You might need them now and then. And then the further out you go in the bullseye, you eventually get to a place where there's people that you should be networking with, but you have really no reason to contact. Maybe you don't even know them. And so I think when you start a job, your first order of business is you've got to figure out your inner circle. I mean, that's got to be first. And I look at that when we coach new executives, I look at that as first 30 days. You want to go meet with all those people. You want to get to know them. You want to build those relationships. They need to know who you are. And you need to know their point of view. They need to know yours.
Mm-hmm.
But after 30 days, you really ought to be thinking about that next circle. And it depends how many people are in there, right, and how busy your schedule is. But at some point, you've got to work your way out.
Gotcha.
And I think, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I understand what you're saying. As you approach some of these people, what if they come out and say, why do you want to know all this stuff? Do you admit that, hey, it's for advancement, or I just want to be a better person at the job that I'm doing?
It depends on the situation, I think. I think most people in that situation aren't so naive to think that, you're just doing this out of the goodness of your heart. So I think you can be authentic about, hey, I'm looking to expand my view of the organization. I'm committed to this organization. I want to learn as much about it as I can so I can advance here. You don't have to say, I'm looking for promotion in the next 3 months and I'm after your job.
Yeah.
You can put it in more general terms, be a little humble. Gosh, I came into a retail organization from a fintech company, and I don't know anything about, merchandising.
Oh, okay.
So I want to get a better point of view on this.
So
you can, yeah.
What if you work at home? Because a lot of people are still working at home.
That is true, and that definitely complicates this process.
Yeah.
I think you can still do it, though.
Mm-hmm.
I would not buy that would be an excuse not to do it. I think you just have to maybe be a little more intentional about sending out an email and asking people to set up a call, or, the old-fashioned way that we don't even think about anymore, pick up the phone.
That's the best, because there's nothing better than the sound of a voice. You can tell whether somebody's sincere or not.
Yeah, and there are, it's amazing to me, and when everybody shifted to remote, we're all on Zoom, we lost the casual, informal connection that we had in the office, as you walk by somebody's cubicle or, the office doors open.
How you doing? How's the family? Yeah. You get to know somebody, And
I tell people all the time, the way you replicate that is don't make an appointment. Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Then, even if they don't answer, it doesn't matter. Leave a voicemail, leave a message, let them hear from you. You might set up a 15-minute appointment or a 10-minute appointment. The whole day doesn't have to be monopolized with, 1-hour Zoom calls. But I think we've forgotten how to just pick up the phone and say hello.
They don't even know how to pick up the phone and say hello anymore. It's all text me this or text me that. No, I want to hear your voice, because that voice tells me a lot about the person.
It does. Yeah, I would never recommend somebody underestimate that.
Yeah.
It's funny. We used to say don't underestimate the power of a personal note. Mm-hmm. Well, I think today a phone call is even falls into that same category.
Yeah, but the young people don't know about that.
No.
I'm serious. It's like, text me this or email me that or whatever. And I'm going, wait a minute. I want to hear from you. Text may not get to you. An email may not get to you. My voice will.
Right. And most people will listen to their voicemail, or they'll say, Mary Jane called. Let me just call her back.
Yeah.
And then what do you know? You're talking.
Yeah. Exactly. And, the approach, again, you have to be delicate, I would think, to a certain extent, but not afraid to try it, right?
That's exactly right. And, I think everybody, if you are upwardly mobile, and not everyone is, not everybody wants to be promoted, but if you're really looking to be promoted, what you need to do is expand your view, take on a bigger picture view of the organization and how the various pieces fit together. And if you are, even if you're upfront about what you're doing, the fact that you're doing that, and who you need to, talk to figure that out, there's not too many bosses that would say, "Oh no, don't do that."
No, not if they're secure.
No, exactly. And if they're not, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, that might not be the person you want to be working for anyway. You know?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay, so Dawn, do you have a website? I
do. It's LeaderShiftInsights.com. LeaderShiftInsights.com.
Terrific. And your book, Resilience, available where?
It is. Amazon is probably the best place to get it, but you can also get it on my website.
Terrific. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us. And have you had several promotions in your days?
I certainly have. Yeah, and thank you. I'm thrilled to be on the show. This was exciting. But yes, I have had several promotions, and I've also had a few failures.
Well, yeah, but that's life, right?
That is absolutely life. And my favorite failure was I was working for a new organization. I was kind of mid-career, and I had always been, high potential, high performer. I was always rewarded for what I did. And all of a sudden, a year into a new company, my boss called me in, and of course, I had the list of all the objectives and how I had exceeded them. And I came in expecting a high performance rating, and she gave me a needs improvement. And I said, "How? Like what? What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, you don't know my peers." And in her mind, I had not done the networking that she expected me to do to grow in that organization. And so my development plan was to take everybody, all of her peers, to lunch.
I'll be amazing. Yeah.
You talk about a life-changing moment.
Yeah. It's like, what?
I've never been so shocked in all my life, but I will tell you that was also a time when I made a move from the north to the south, and relationships, became infinitely more important, and I faced the power of what that meant.
That's called a wake-up call.
It was a wake-up call. It shaped my career, and it shaped the way I coach.
Fantastic. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, because I'm sure there are people out there going, I got to try some of this stuff. And, you've been there, done that, and that counts for a lot.
Absolutely happy to help. Thanks, Mary Jane.
You betcha. Take good care now, Jennifer.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Once again, that's Jennifer Eggers. Name of the book is Resilience. I guess it's the old saying, you can climb, but you don't have to scratch. There are ways to do it. It's the finesse is what you have to do. Finesse it. Oh, I tell you, we all have to work at it, right?